Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. But thank you so much for joining us. But one of the subjects we're going to talk about today is compression. Yeah, I think it's a vital part of the sound of your mixes, be it in a studio or be it live. Compression, we're used to hearing compression can enhance the sound of individual instruments or your whole mix if it's used properly and set properly. So I'm going to show you some of the controls that we can do that with. Today we're going to stay with basic compression. On a later video I'll work with the multi-band and also parallel compression. Beautiful console, Digico SD21. It's provided by Mr. Ryan Sheldon and Mr. Matt Quest, and I appreciate them so much for allowing me to use this for this demonstration. I really appreciate it. Really a perfect tool for showing you what some of the controls do. I would assume that most of you are just beginning and just trying to learn maybe some things more about compression if you've already dealt with it. So that's what we'll cover today. Now, one of the first things I'll do is go through the settings. Now, be it if it's analog, older units that's set in the wall, hardware units, or whether it be digital plugins and what have you on compressions and limiters. The basic controls are very similar, have always been. We have a threshold, we have a ratio, we have attack and release time, and we have a knee, and we have a makeup gain. You see that in just about on most all compressors. Now, some may give you even more flexibility, some may give you less, and still function just as good. You don't, just because it has more controls doesn't mean that limiter or compressor works better. It's just, actually, that's just more time that you're eating up in a live sound mix, so you need things simpler, really. Let's go on and I'll go over some of the setups, and in the order that I would set up a compressor even before a musician would begin to play the actual signal, send me the signal down that I would process. So I'm using a vocal mic now. We'll just call this a vocal mic. We'll start with the attack time is what I would do. The attack time, I'm going to go to a medium slow, probably medium to slow attack time. It's not so abrupt. It's not pumping, squishing it down in the fact that it's taking the front notes off of a line down, and we're hearing that. I think that's where we hear compression is on the attack and release time, probably two of the most critical settings that we can set. Now on the release time, I've taken this up to 600, say, milliseconds. That is, it's a gradual thing, so it's not a very fast pumping sound, and that pumping sound is what we really hear. So this way it's smoother, and I think those settings, generally speaking, work really well with a vocal and work excellent. So the next knob I would probably set is my ratio. Right now it's set on a 3.5. We can vary this around. It goes 1:1. Obviously, if it's on a 1:1, that means the compressor is doing nothing. No matter what all the rest of the controls to do, it is doing nothing. That means a 1 dB in increase will yield a 1 dB in output. So it's doing nothing. If you find that sometimes you're just not getting very much results out of that compressor, well, it could be the ratio maybe is too low. But however, when we do use ratios, I'm finding that a 2:1 is pretty standard on compression, 2:1 to 4:1 on compression. Now keep in mind a 10:1 and above, we're talking about limiting. That's where a limiter comes in. A limiter is just pretty much what it says. We're limiting peaks that are coming down the signal chain to us. We know that the average music is fine. It doesn't really need compression, but there might be some occasional spikes that come along. Maybe when they change a preset on a synthesizer, for instance, maybe a guitar player is just turned up. Anyway, these spikes that happen are leveled, and leveling amplifier. So that's what it's doing, and it's generally set at a 10:1 and above. So I like using it as a compressor. 98 to 99% of the time I am using compression in a console rather than limiting, only where it's necessary. Now I'm going to stay down here. I work a lot around a 3:1 ratio. I think it works good for almost any instrument. It will work good for the vocals, the instruments, and also the drums and percussion. Now the next stage might be the knee, what's also called the knee. This is the way that the compressor itself above threshold begins to its aggressiveness in processing that signal. A soft knee is just that. It's almost undetectable. When we have a soft knee, it's very smooth. That means, again, once it's past threshold, it smoothly does what you've told it to do on the other controls. A medium might be used for bass guitar, guitars, I think would be pretty common use for them. On a hard knee would be really good on percussion and on kick drum, snare drum, what have you. We need full aggression out of that compressor when the signal goes above threshold. But it seems to work better on percussive instruments to use the hard knee. And then we have the makeup gain. And the makeup gain, in this case on this vocal, I'm doing these settings for what I would set on a vocalist before I've even heard their vocal setting. What I set on the attack time, the release time, the ratio, and the knee would have already been set, including this output gain. And I may go set this, say, on generally 5 dB. Why 5 dB? Why did I pick that? Because now the next and only control to adjust yet is the threshold. And when I adjust the threshold, we'll start to see gain reduction. And I'm going to do gain reduction until I see somewhere between the 3 to 5 dB, 3 to 6 dB of gain reduction all the time. When it's compressing, to me, it is under threshold, into the threshold all the time. So I'm looking for 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction. Therefore, I made up for it in the makeup gain. That gives me unity gain. So the input coming into that compressor and the input going out of the compressor should be very close to one another if I enable it and disable it. The final knob to set is the threshold. So with the threshold, I will adjust it here until I'm looking at the gain reduction meter, and I'm adjusting this threshold until I see there it's way over compressed. We're looking at the gain reduction. And up here, we're looking at the input, the gain reduction, again, it's doing almost nothing. So here, I'm going to average between 3 and 6 dB of gain reduction all the time. There I've made up for it in the output gain. We have unity gain between the input and the output. Now let's listen to that compressor in and out, engaged and disengaged. And you should hear little to no changes in the volume. You'll only hear a compressed signal versus a non-compressed signal. So this is a compressed signal, this is non-compressed. Hopefully the volume has remained the same. This is compressed. This is containing our dynamic range but keeping it at the same level as if it were disengaged and not on there at all. So that way, this happened really, I think, from analog days, and we had to patch the compressor in. If we did not have this unity gain structure in place, well, then you could plug it in and the signal would get very much louder or it could get very much soft. Compressor is in now. I hit a couple of hard and loud signals, and hopefully it's holding that. Let's try to show you another instrument. Let's take a kick drum, and I'll show you what I do on the kick drum. So if turn this kick drum up, and as it's playing, and we look at the settings of it, and here's what we have with this kick drum. Now I can tell you, we can look at this, and I can tell you a lot of things about this before we really began to work on it again. One, there's hardly no gain reduction going on at all. There is which is dependent upon the threshold and the ratio. So, but let's think kick drum. How would we reset our controls to accommodate that kick drum, or snare drum for that matter, tom-toms, any percussive stuff, congas or what have you? It'd probably be a similar thing. I would have a pretty fast attack time. I would increase this to where it's much faster. I would make the release time a little bit faster as well. When you work with this, would say, well, 34.1 milliseconds, that's really narrowing it down to a pretty small increment. But no, you do it by ear. You do it by ear, but those will give you some rough areas that you may want to try on those particular instruments. The main thing you see now, it's a percussive instrument that I'm working with, and it's shorter. I may go up to the knee right away and say, well, this is a kick drum, and go to a hard knee. The makeup gain just stays the same as it was, around a 5 dB of makeup gain. And then the ratio, I may bring that down a little bit to around a 3 to 1 to play, and I'm going to set this until the threshold begins to kick in, and with about a 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction. and that's almost 6 dB of gain reduction. So now, once again, I'm going to take the kick drum compressor in and out, and we should hear the gain not change a whole lot. That's in, that's out, that's in, that's out, that's in. So cool, that was a kick drum. Let's listen to a bass guitar. And what the bass guitar, we're going to do pretty much the same. I'm going to go back to, I think this is one time where I want to use a medium knee. I don't want it too fast or too slow. I want it somewhere in the middle here. And I want a fairly fast attack time, but I want the release time to be a little bit longer, especially on whole notes that he might hit and hold, that we want that note to be smooth throughout and its recovery to be slow, not interrupted. So I'm putting that there. But notice my makeup gain is about the same as it was, and then my ratio is about the same as it was, a 3-to-1. I'm fine. All I have to do now is set the threshold. Once the musician is playing, I'll set the threshold. So we're going to listen to this, and I'm going to vary this threshold to where we're just slamming it. Here we can see that that's no good. Here there is no compression with that threshold backed all the way off. And now I back it in to where we've got about, about 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction. And that's pretty much it. That's where I would leave it set. During the show, as things play, maybe the bass player changes different instruments. During the show, I might only have to adjust the threshold. Now let's see what else we have to play for you here. I think I've got an acoustic guitar. Here's where I'm going to go to a softer knee right in the beginning. I'm going to leave my makeup gain the same. I seldom change it. It's always going to be set at around a 5 dB, a makeup gain. My attack time, I want it to be a little bit slower. I want my release time to be pretty much where it's at right now, maybe even a little bit slower. And then, so again, it's nice and smooth on the attack time and release time. It's not, it comes down slowly, it comes back up even a little bit slower. My ratio, 3-to-1, works well for me, as I said, in the soft knee, makeup gain. Now it's just to adjust the threshold. We'll listen to the guitar. Way over compressed because I'm hitting the threshold far too hard. No compression. Now I'll dial it in about 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction. I'm set. So even if he has several acoustic guitars that he's playing during the show and that he's going to change from one to the other, and the input level to me may change, well then really the only thing I need to adjust is that threshold. So that can vary back and forth depending upon the instrument and the signal. So there we go. That's the really the fundamental of a basic compressor. Talked a little bit about a limiter. There's so much more I can talk to you, but trying to keep these videos as short as possible so we can do a whole bunch of them and combine them all together. I will do another one on multiband compression and parallel compression. So that will be my next one that I will get done. And then we will go over that as well and add these in. So thank you so much for your time, for joining me. I appreciate it so much. Keep up the great work and learning as much as you can and getting out there and mixing and having a great time. There could be nothing, it's priceless to describe what a great show, what the satisfaction is from that. When the musician's having a great night, you're having a great night, it's all coming together. And I hope some of these things will help you. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.